Are you trying to dominate your fantasy football league? Do you want so many championship rings it's impossible to sign autographs? Well, crack open a beer, pour yourself a glass of bourbon, and settle in, because you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hammercast.
Welcome to the Double D's podcast, which is part of the Hammercast network. I'm your host, Kevin Coleman. On this episode of the podcast, we have special guest for a second time, Todd Foster, who is a Devy writer for IDP Guys and co-host of the Tale of Two Rivals podcast. Todd, thanks for coming on again. And why don't you tell our listeners some work that you've been doing recently or anything out there that you have?
What's up, man? I'm excited to get on here and talk some Devy. So, like you said, I am a co-host on the Tale of Two Rivals with one of one hoodie. But yeah, so I've been putting out the content on Tale of Two Rivals. I've been working on rookie profiles for the IDP Guys rookie mag that's going to be coming out at like a few weeks after the draft. We're on there with the Dynasty Vipers, which everybody knows. What Calvin Hobbs seems like he's like online like every day, and and I actually put my first Devy article out there in the world for the IDP Guys, and it was a report on the RB transfers, the best transfers.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of good movement there. And I'm trying to stick to like kind of positional pieces. So I'm going to be going to the freshman next, and I'm going to be looking at transfers for wide receivers next.
No, nice. Yeah, no, Devy is so open. There's so much things to talk about with Devy, and that's why we have him on. Me and Todd don't really agree on a lot of things, and we definitely don't agree on wide receivers. That was one area. We're in a group chat with Brandon from Deep Devy Dive, and we talked about wide receivers. And it's like, hey, let's jump on and talk about our top 10 because we definitely disagree on the wide receiver one. And apparently after getting our list together and me seeing kind of where we're at, we definitely don't agree on some of them, which is good. I think Devy is one of those things that you see these people just pop up out of nowhere and you're like, hey, where did this wide receiver come from? And so everybody's top 10 is going to be a little bit different and it's good to do. So what we're going to be looking at is the top 10 Devy wide receivers. We're going to start at the top. So we're going to number 10, and then we're going to work our way down to 1. We're going to go through, talk about what we like about each prospect, where they're at, where we see them, and go from there. So we're going to let Todd go first. I believe he's older, so the older guy's going to go first in this, and he's going to give us our number 10 Devy wide receiver for him.
Older and better, baby. All right, number 10 for me is Quentin Johnston. From TCU, true freshman last year. I jumped into a film session with Brandon and Skip Newton and did that. And I was already high on Quentin. I came out loving Quentin. So after I did the film session, this is why I love Quentin. He is a dynamite vertical player. He is a big receiver. He's got amazing ball skills. He's got amazing athleticism for a guy his size. But the reason why I like him the most is there's plenty of room for improvement. Yeah. He already looks like a guy who could be a dominant wide receiver at the next level. So the ceiling is high, man. And in that TCU offense, he's going to eat. He's going to get plenty of looks. And he's got the size, the athleticism, the ball skills. And I'm all in on him. One thing I think that he could work on is his footwork. He doesn't really set people up. And one thing I actually disagree with Brandon Skip on a little bit is I thought that he was pretty agile for a big guy. Yeah. Like he's got like a nice juke move. He's not going to be like a yak monster, but like if he gets a ball deep, he's going to be able to do something to extend that. So I love Johnson, dude. He's a guy who I had around like 14. And then like over the few weeks, I bumped him up to 10.
No, that's fair. I think I have him around wide receiver 12. So he's close for me. He's not in my top 10 yet, but that size, 6'4", 193, he's a monster. And I like what you talked about. This last year for TCU, Quentin Johnston had 22 catches, 487 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And that offense I think that offense could be better. You got Zach Evans, who I think is going to be better than that at the runner. Duggan, whatever you think of the quarterback there. It kind of depends what you think of him. He's kind of a hot debated topic there. But I think that he is going to get the volume that you'd want to see from a receiver. But he's going to sneak his way in there. So, no, I agree. I like that pick. He's right on the outside of cusp for me, but that's not something egregious. That's not something that, we're talking about, oh, my God, Quentin Johnston. I do like his profile. I do, like you said, though, his release, I think, needs a little work on. I know that you did that. I watched that film study that you did, too. I would say that his release needs a little bit of work on. I think he is agile, though. I think
he is.
he's got that sneaking agility, right? Like I think he can get it and he's going to work on it, but I definitely think his footwork and release needs to get worked on.
And I think when you see like a true freshman like that come right in right away, this kid's not used to having to try very hard against defense. He's just used to being a bigger, better athlete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, of course he's going to fine-tune his game now that he's going against bigger, better athletes.
And that's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up, especially like with these freshmen that come out of nowhere. These guys are the best athletes at their high school, and a lot of these times they just look great. Like Xavier Capers from Auburn. He's a guy that I'm really high on for next year. But like she struggled a little bit last year. And the reason why is because he came from a school where he was the dominating force in that league. Then he goes to Auburn. SEC is a whole different ball game. These guys take some time, but it is rewarding that Quentin did what he did because you can tell he's got some talent. So I like the Quentin Johnston pick. He almost made my top 10. He was there. Now, for me, I'm going to go a little off track here for you. I'm going to see if I can shock you with the first one. This is a guy that I absolutely love. He was my wide receiver 1 of this class that's coming out this year. Then he got hurt. And we didn't know if he was going to play football again, and now he's back. And that is Justyn Ross from Clemson. So I actually have Justyn Ross in my top 10. Now, this isn't – the reason why I know some people are off on him is because he had a spinal injury. And he had a neck injury. It looks like he's coming back, and I'm going based off what doctors have said that he's healthy and he can roll. So if he can roll and he's healthy, this is a guy that people were saying that could go above Chase before he got hurt, before Chase's year. So when you look at what Justyn Ross has done, at Clemson he had a breakout year his freshman year. So all of our breakout guys out there, where's all my analytic guys out there? I know you're out there somewhere. About 8.5, he had 46 catches. He had 1,000 yards receiving his freshman year. The next year, 66 catches, 865 yards receiving, and he was going in the first and second round of Devy drafts because he was that good. Then he got hurt, and I mean the thing about him, he's thick, he's physical, he's 6'3", 205, has excellent play strength. He's possession style role. I don't know if he's ever going to be a burner, but he does sell his vertical cuts. He's got pretty good footwork. I don't think there's anything that we have to be concerned about with him except for his injury. Can he come back? I'm going off the basis that he is healthy based on his surgery that he had and what his doctors said. I don't think they put him out there at all if he had any chance of getting re-injured seriously with that injury. And I think he's actually one of the biggest values in drafts right now because people don't want to draft him because of that injury. I saw him going like the 12th round of a Devy draft I recently did. That's insane for a guy that was probably going to go in the first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, and the thing for me is I don't think that's crazy, man. I have him 13.
Okay.
So, like, I'm not, like, crazy off because – and the thing about him is like, he was a top 5, top 3 wide receiver before the injury, like, easily. Like, if he comes back healthy, his ceiling is first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, to me, if anybody ever listens to A Tale of Two Rivals, I'm not the optimist when it comes to injuries.
Yeah.
Like, that's definitely Dave. But at the same time, though, is, like, the 2 guys I have ahead of him, obviously besides my top 10, were Marvin Mims, who broke out big in Oklahoma, and then Demaz, the kid from Texas A&M. And honestly, like, a kid I haven't ever seen play a college game who hasn't played football for 2 years, I have ahead of him.
Yeah.
But I also know that we're not looking at a major injury. Ross had a major injury, But at that 13 spot in a Devy draft, or like I say Devy, I only play C2C.
Yeah.
So in a C2C draft, that's a spot where you take Ross. And if you go take him around like that 10th spot, totally worth it, man. Totally worth it. A little ballsier than me, but I respect it.
Yeah, but I mean, you're giving so if you're getting him as your 10th or 11th, 12th wide receiver, you could be consistently getting a wide receiver 1 in maybe the 4th, 5th round, 6th round, depending on where kind of that goes. And so I like him. I want to give him a shout out because he came back from a devastating injury. I have him on a lot of rosters, so thank God he's back. I had him with Journey Brown in a lot of rosters, so it's hurting my soul a little bit. But when you see those, the way he plays is just under control. He has that. So obviously injury notwithstanding, I get that. But I have him at 10 right now, hoping that he can hang on. And if he comes out this year, him and DJU, and they have a great offense, we could see him rise up those draft boards pretty quick. So
dude, honestly, Ukulele, I think, is a better profile for his skill set.
Yeah, no, I think it's so too, and which is crazy to think about with Trevor Lawrence. But I think that they need a guy like Justyn Ross, especially with the injuries they had. Yeah, Joe Nagata, all those different guys there. So I think Ross. Man. I think Ross will be wide receiver 1 there next year. All right, let's go to your wide receiver 9.
All right, man. So at number 9, I have Chris Olave. And I got to be honest. This is my floor pick. I think Chris Olave is a second, third round draft pick at his floor. I think he's a second, third round draft pick at his ceiling.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like the safest pick you could have as a wide receiver. Chris Olave is going to be an NFL wide receiver. He's going to be a guy who's going to move the sticks, and you have to respect the fact of how much better he's gotten and how much he continues to improve. And he continues to eat with plenty of competition behind him.
Yeah.
So with another year under Brian Hartland too, means a lot to me, So like when I look at Chris Olave, it's not a guy that I find sexy, but you need those stability players to be able to win at the college and the NFL level in your C2C leagues. So this is where I start saying, I had Chris Olave, I think, around like 13. I had him behind Ross, and I'm like, this is as safe as a safe can get, man.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of where like the reasonable side of me comes in, which is very rare. But yeah, he's a safe pick, man.
He is a safe pick. I don't have him in my top 10, so you're not far off on that. Like, I'm not a big Chris Olave fan. I actually got all kinds of Ohio State people mad at me when I did the Ohio State podcast because I said that I actually think he's the fourth best receiver on that team. And people came after me. But I think it's true. Like you said, I think he's safe. I do, like, I don't think I know people tout his route running, but I actually think it's okay. Like, there's nothing about Olave's game that's amazing. Is there anything in there?
I actually think his route running, I think he's very technically sound. Okay. I think he's a solid, technically sound player. He knows how to set up things. He has great spatial awareness. I don't think he's an exceptional athlete, but at the same time, I think he's a good enough athlete and he's good enough of a player to do something with it. And after he catches the football, he's actually pretty good after the catch because he's just a very, very smart player, and he's a guy that I see who works and is versatile. He can line up anywhere on that line, So he's a guy that a lot of people I look at. Like if you're like a vertical threat, I worry about where you're going to land in the NFL. Chris Olave, I don't worry. You're going to fit somewhere. Okay. You know what I mean? So like to me, I just feel like he's a guy who's just solid. He's as solid can come.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's fair with him. I just when like we were talking beforehand, my top 10 guys are guys that I want to be game changers or guys that I think can really separate themselves. Olave for me is not necessarily that guy for me. Just because I think these other guys that I have on here can be kind of a better receiver in the pros. Even a guy like Joe Nagata from Clemson, who I mentioned earlier. I actually like him more than Olave. Olave is someone that I'm probably not going to draft in a lot of my teams based on his ADP, where his ADP is going right now. Because the common Devy guy, the ones that don't know a ton about Devys or they get in there, they're going to draft him way too high based on his perceived talent rather than probably his production. He's a borderline wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 to me. That's Chris Olave to me.
He's Jamison Crowder.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's yeah.
I think that's fair. I think it's a fair comp.
No, that's fair. No, that's good. No, all right. Well, hey, my wide receiver nine, I'm interested to see where you have him, is my guy, Jordan Addison. Pittsburgh wide receiver, 60 catches, 666 yards receiving, which scares me a little bit. But 4 touchdowns, he averaged about 11 yards a catch. He was someone that I was super high on coming into last year, and he didn't do anything to me that should discredit him. He actually did better than what I thought in a bad Pittsburgh offense with Kenny Pickett out there and just really no rushing attack to be heard of. Really no other receivers on that team. So Addison to me is my high upside pick here. I actually have him, coming into the season, he basically had 25 catches for 544 yards in high school. So he has that big playability. They used him all over the place, bubble screens, mid screens. He runs a 4.5. So he's definitely got the speed. I liked a very good comp. There's 2 comps I like, Tyler Boyd and Deshaun Jackson. And it's interesting comps there. Like I like kind of both of them. I think he could be in that Deshaun. I don't know if he's as fast, but he's a good slot guy. But I think he has excellent ball skills in traffic. He has shown separation. And for a freshman wide receiver to do what he did, I think that he's in for a big breakout sophomore season.
I thought Tyler Boyd was a little bold. Deshaun Jackson, Day-Jack, I don't see. Respect. I don't see it. Yeah. But at the same time, I had Addison as my wide receiver 25.
So we're a little off, just a little off on this one.
I did he was a guy I actually watched a lot of film on when I did my rankings. So I do have a top 100 on IDP, guys, too. And for that, when I dove in, he's a guy that I'm a little kind of on the fence with. Okay. He has it, I think he's a good athlete. You know what I mean? I think that he got the ball out of necessity, and I don't really like that offense. And, they're not exactly going to get better. And there's just not a lot of things that jumped out to me. Now, do I see the possibility of being wrong? Oh, heck yeah. He's definitely a good athlete, and he definitely got volume, Yeah. So he's just not a guy that jumped out to me, But I totally respect it, and I could totally see people being high on him. I'm just not one of those people.
I think the thing that comes from me is his ball skills, what he can do with the ball when it's in his hands, and I think he has great hands, and he does pretty good job separation from defenders, being young and what he was at. And I think the big point for me, and this is a shout out to Breakout Finders, they do a good job with these guys. When I was going there last year when I was looking for these guys and going over my wide receivers, they pointed out that he actually played quarterback and really running back in high school too. He only really played 1 year receiver. So when you're looking at what he's been able to do with basically 2 years of receiving, basically he's actually got some usage there. That's why I think this is an upside pick for me. I think that he can reach some potential. And if he gets another year there, I'm expecting a big breakout. Now, if that big breakout doesn't happen in sophomore season, then he's going to go down a little bit for me. But I don't mind taking him because he's not getting drafted as a wide receiver 9. He's going to be getting drafted as a wide receiver maybe 15, 20, 22, depending on if you have a Pittsburgh Panther fan in there. But, I like him. I think he's impressive, and I'm expecting a breakout.
All respect, man.
All right. Where's your 8? What do you got for 8? Because this is a guy that I'm not high on at all. So I want to see if you could change my opinion of him.
All right. So at number 8, I had the number 1 wide receiver in last year's class is Julian Fleming.
Yes.
For me, this is kind of I'm being a little patient. When I watched him on tape, I kind of get where you're coming from. I think he was great at everything. Great. Not exceptional, not elite. But the thing is he looked polished. He's got good strength. He's a good route runner. And to me, he looks like a guy that I'm expecting a lot of volume in that offense. Maybe next year. So it's kind of he's going to be the 3rd in the pecking order there. Absolutely. I mean, Olave's still going to eat, and there's another guy. We'll just say there's another guy. You know what I mean? So the other guy's coming up later.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that you're looking at a 5-star talent with Brian Hartland, who I trust that evaluation process, and from my eye, I'm excited to see what he can do. I don't want to pass off the opportunity for all those positives that he has in front of him, And if it busts, it busts. But I also think that when you want to talk about ceiling, I mean, it couldn't get possibly higher with him, Yeah,
I think the problem I'm having with Fleming is that nothing really pops for me. So when I'm watching his tape and I think he's a very solid possession receiver. Would you say that's pretty much where he's going to be? Because I don't see the speed, I don't see the acceleration that some people. I don't see it. Maybe he didn't have it last year.
I saw the vertical game. I definitely saw the vertical game. But for me, I look at a guy that kind of reminds me of Jarvis Landry. That's who stuck out to me. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to move the sticks and stuff like that, but he can stretch the field. Anytime anyone thinks about Jarvis Landry, you think about a guy who's just going to catch the ball, then we don't just be a maniac, right? And do some yak stuff. Jarvis Landry can get downfield. You know what I mean? He's just not asked to do it as much. And I think that Fleming could be that, So for me in the NFL, there's only so many guys that you're going to see be like that beast that goes down the field. I want to be able to see a guy who's going to be able to move the sticks and do it over the middle. And Fleming can definitely be that at the next level. And the biggest knock on him is that he's just surrounded by talent.
Yeah.
But he has the best wide receiver coach in the country too, though, So.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. I think he's very well-rounded prospect. So when I'm looking at him, he's a very well-rounded prospect. I believe he's at 11 or 12 for me. So he's really close for me.
Yeah.
To me, when I'm watching him, nothing pops yet. He really needs to take that step. I want to see him in college. High school, it's hard for me to distinguish. When I'm watching grainy-ass huddle film, it's hard for me to determine, who is that guy? What level of defense is he playing? So, when I looked at it from last year, he just got so much talent, guys around him, that I'm hoping that he can break free. But like you said, Brian Hartline is one of the top coaches in college football. Brian Hartline is one of the – and I hate talking about Ohio State players because I'm a Michigan fan, and I hate doing it. But they're wide receiver U. In my recent Fantasy Pros article I just submitted, they're wide receiver U. They are. And that's Julian Fleming. And so I get it. I'm not ready to put him yet higher because I want to see more explosiveness. I want to see more going over the top vertically. I think he was learning the game as well. And so you could tell that on tape. He was still learning out there. He didn't really have a place on that roster, so hopefully he finds a place. But no, I'm okay with it. I mean, it's close. It's there. Now, here's my wide receiver 8. Okay. Right. I kind of have a type, as you can tell, but it's Marvin Mims.
Love it.
My guy, Marvin, again, I have him everywhere. These are some guys I'm getting a little biased because I draft these guys, and now I'm like, yeah, these are my guys. But he's 5'11", 177. He's probably in that 180-ish range. We'll see how he does. Again, these weights are all based on schools, and who the hell knows what those are. But in Texas high school, the thing that I loved about Marvin coming into last year, that dude produced at the highest level, 6A in Texas football, and he had over 5,000 yards receiving. And his senior season, he had 2,600 yards receiving and 32 touchdowns and 117 catches at the highest.
How is he not a 5-star guy? How is he not 5-star, dude?
I don't know. You tell me that. I don't understand the process there. But I mean, when you look at it. When you look at what he did, he had 2,600 yards receiving in one of the best conferences in high school football. And then what was good for him and, bad for Hazelwood and all these other guys is that he got thrust into the spotlight because of all those injuries that they had. And he's freaking electric. He had 37 catches, 610 yards, and 9 touchdowns last year. Him and Rattler seem to have a very good connection with each other. Deep balls. He's a deep ball threat every time he goes out there. He's an athlete. He's a registered vertical of 37 inches. So this dude can jump. He catches the ball in traffic. He does a good job of adjusting the ball in ball flight. His athleticism is up there. There's really nothing I hate about him. I guess his size might hurt him, but I don't think he's ever going to be that big guy on the offensive side. He'll be the X and he'll be that vertical wide receiver. But I absolutely love him just because he's a playmaker. And playmakers, to me, they light my eyes up, and I love it. And I think that we're going to see a big explosion out of him this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's my wide receiver 11. Like, he just made it outside my 10. And the reason he got knocked down is not him. It's the crowd, right? Well, he finished second in reception. He finished tied for first with Theo Weiss. Yeah. Right? And then you have Hasselwood, like you said. And then you have, Mario Williams coming in, So to me, it's kind of like, I feel like he kind of benefited from a lot of – and then Bridges – Treylon Bridges, yeah, he's a good player. You know what I mean? So to me, I'm like, I just worry about him continuing to see the volume. You know what I mean? And he's good enough to see the volume. It's just that so many mouths there. That's what kind of gave like a few of those guys. That's actually what gave Quentin Johnston the edge over him for me. I'm like, I know Quentin Johnston's going to eat in there. Like, he's going to be the alpha. That's what gave it to me, And so with Marvin Mims also. There was a size piece. So I love Marvin Mims, man. My beef with Marvin Mims not being in my top 10 has nothing to do with Marvin Mims. It has to do with him just being in a crowded situation, Yeah,
no, he's going to be crowded.
I love him.
I do think that him having that uptick in volume last year because of the opportunities he got is only going to help him because he'd be able to develop that relationship with Rattler. Unlike a guy like what we just talked about with Fleming, who's coming in now, new quarterback, didn't really have that opportunity to play. Mims' ability to get out there and play more. So I like him. I really do, and I think he has that explosive behavior, that explosiveness that you want to see in a receiver. But no, I think he's in that top. He's in that 8 to 12 range. I think for everybody, I think he's in there. Dude. But I'm just banking on, hey, great next year. Now, if you're thinking about C2C, I think, yes, you're right. The opportunity is going to go down a little bit. Think about Devy. Hey, I'll take him as one of my top 10 and ride him into the NFL, hopefully. That's kind of where I was there. All right, let's go to your 7. Let's go to your 7. What do you got at 7?
All right, at number 7, I have Rakim Jarrett from Maryland. 5-star athlete. He's going to be the guy who's going to eat in there. Baby Tua is going to be the QB. He can do everything on film. He's got the feet. He's got the size. He's got the yak. He can get up. He is a complete wide receiver. And just like Quentin Johnston, this is what I want to see. I want your volume. I want to see you eat. I want to see you produce. So this is another C2C player that I know is going to help me on that college side. And I think it's going to be has the ceiling of a first round. And let me put it this way: when I play C2C, I play to win both weeks, man. I'm trying to win both. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say like, oh, it's always the NFL side. Number one priority, always NFL potential. but Rakim's going to eat for both of your teams. And all day, dude. Love that.
I love Rakim. He's a little higher on me. We'll talk about him a little later for me. But he has a chance to be wide receiver one of this class. In this class that's pretty loaded.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Between him and Kayshawn, and God, if Demas ever comes back to life, and then you got all these different groups in here. I really like him. I like Jarrett. He's big, 6 foot, 208. He's got good change of direction speeds, and he's freaking physical, and he's an athletic monster. And him and Tagovailoa, they're going to be great together. You saw a little bit of chemistry last year. He had 17 catches, 252 yards. COVID wiped out Maryland's season, so they were really, after a couple games, they were kind of out of it. But, no, you're right, and that defense is awful, so they're going to score a ton of points. And so I actually picked them in my recent article to be maybe a dark horse for the Big Ten, just because I think that with that offense that they have, especially these two guys, Jarrett and Tagovailoa, basically doing these things, I think they could win the Big Ten. I think they could at least compete, and that's different from Maryland, right? We usually don't talk about this with Maryland football, but no, I think he's good. He's physical. I think that he definitely, the one thing I will say, if I have to make a criticism of him, he tends to be a body catcher. And so he doesn't catch the
That is true, actually. I saw that too. That's a good call.
Yeah.
So the reason why, I think he's a top 5 talent. Yeah. The reason he's 7 for me is he's in Maryland. Like, that's it. I'm not trying to say Stephon Diggs came out of Maryland and all that. You know what I mean? Those are outliers as far as I'm concerned. So where you play does matter to me to a certain degree. I'm looking for some hit rate here, And now that doesn't mean I'm knocking his game. It just means there's a few guys I have higher than him for that reason.
Yeah, no, hey, that's fair. I think that's fair there, and we have that. Now we're going to go to my wide receiver 7, and I want all my Ohio State fans to be out there. I didn't forget about you guys, okay? You have 2 of them in my top 10, all right? And for me, though, this is Jackson Smith-Njigba. I love this kid.
Interesting.
This is my guy. I just wrote about him in my Fantasy Pros article. I know everybody loves Garrett Wilson, which I do. He'll be later. But Julian Fleming, G. Scott, Chris Olave, Emeka, Abuka, all these different guys coming, even Marvin Harrison Jr., all these dudes, I feel like JSN gets kind of pushed to the side. And again, we forget what JSN did in high school. In the highest prep 6A, just like Marvin Mims, he had 5,300 receiving yards and 82 touchdowns in his high school career. So when we looked at him, he's an athletic freak. I think that he actually has the best hands on that wide receiver depth chart. I really do. He can excel at the slot because I think he's pretty technical, and he's a versatile runner. So when you see him, he can really go anywhere because I think he can play on the outside and the slot. And if you saw what he did against in that Nebraska touchdown he scored in the back of the end zone, that kind of was his whole athletic profile. Again, he's in a crowded-ass room, and they got all kinds of receivers. He's crowded. But with what he did in high school with his production against top-level talent, I think, and my bold take was I think he could be the second leading receiver next season for Ohio State.
It's definitely in the realm of possibilities, man. It's definitely in the realm. He's a guy that I'm not as high on because he's just he's my man out. Yeah. He's the guy where I say to myself, Mike, this kid has to transfer, right? Like at some point, you just got to be like, I got to go get fed, Yeah. But maybe he easily could beat that competition out, But I think with Wilson or Olave, you're looking at who's coming in to be the wide 3. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But because somebody overstep Olave, absolutely. No one's overstepping Wilson. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? But you got Fleming there too, and obviously we already dropped all the other names. So, yeah, man, I don't hate it. I just think that we're guessing on 2 different freshmen.
We got to pick one of them.
Pretty much, man. I kind of like the fact that we each pick different ones.
And for me, it's just Jackson Smith, just for right now, just because I think that he's 6 foot 193. He's got a pretty explosive profile, and I love his value. He's actually getting picked after Fleming and Olave and all these guys in Devy drafts. I saw him go in the 8th round in a draft. That is insane. If he's going to the 8th round, you better get him because I think that his value is going to totally increase. So that's my guy. So what is your wide receiver 6? Who do you got at 6?
All right, my wide receiver 6 is Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah.
Stud. LSU, man, blew up what did he go for? 5,000 yards and 6 TDs in this last game? It was, I don't know, it was over 300 yards and I can't remember, but it was a monster performance. Dude is an athletic freak of nature. 5-star, second best wide receiver out of there. I had a bunch of shares in him. I traded him away, and it was always hard. But you're looking at a guy that he's a first-round pick. If he's not a first-round pick, I'll be shocked. Now, he can literally do anything on a football field, unbelievable vert, body control, down the field, blah, 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 all that. Now, why is he 6 and not higher for me? Because he's such a freak. He catches with his body a lot.
Yeah.
He does, that's actually right in my rankings. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, you wear all the wide receivers, and Justyn Ross might catch with his body. Then everybody else just gets, like, stats. Yeah. So, I'd like to see that improve. But, you're looking at a guy that has the talent to be top 3 and like a top 3 wide receiver out of who's left. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I love Butte, man. And I think that his athletic profile is perfect for – he's also a guy that could probably line inside and outside too. You know what I mean? I think he's going to slide right into that Terrence Marshall world very well. In fact, he did once Terrence Marshall decided to leave for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a big profile, 6 foot, 185. He'll probably get the 190 if I'm in that LSU the weight room over there. No, what you're talking, against his last game against Ole Miss, he had 14 receptions and 308 yards. I will say that I love Butte. He's actually a little higher for me, but we're pretty close. I will say that he got a lot of volume because a lot of the LSU guys either left, Terrace Marshall, Eric Gilbert. They really didn't have, surprisingly, anybody really throw the ball to. So you could see a little bit of a decrease on his volume, his usage. But I still think him and Jarrett, I think, are going to compete for wide receiver 1 in that class. And so now it's going to be who'd you get him for? Where'd you get him at? Because he's that good. I think that he's also that clutch. He makes clutch catches in the fourth quarter. We see that. I think that he's the closest thing we've seen to basically Justin Jefferson from that offense and Jamar Chase. They're very similar guys. Like, those guys are all really very good profiles. They all fit the kind of same mold that you're going to see from LSU. And if we hope that they have that offense again, I think he's a great play in both Devy and C2C leagues because I think Kayshawn can do it all.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's clutch. And he's one of those guys, and I know all my analytics guys aren't going to like me saying this, but when you watch him on tape or just watch his games, you're like, damn, that kid can play. Like, he just has that pop, that profile, and you're like, hey, there's something about him that separates him from his other peers at his age.
Burn, man. He burns people. Like, he's got good footwork. Like, he sets up his runs well. It could get a little bit tighter. You know what I mean? But he's a freshman. You know what I mean? He was a freshman. Yeah. So, like, once he gets a step on people, next gear, gone, dude. Yeah. Love him.
I agree there. Now, we go to my wide receiver 6, and I hope my guy Adam's not watching this or listening to this because I know he's a huge, from the Undroppables, he's a huge David Bell guy. But my wide receiver 6 is David Bell. So, I have him outside my top 5. Are you all right, Todd? You're good there or not? So let's just inevitable. He's a very good player. I know he is. He had a great freshman year, 1,000 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. Next year, he had 600 yards, 8 touchdowns. He probably would have doubled his production. He earned Big Ten Freshman of the Year honors. He did all those things that he did. I will say the caveat, he did the first one without Rondale Moore being there. So he did see a ton of volume, and he did see a bunch of uses because Moore got hurt. He's got size, he's got athleticism, what you're looking for. So when you look at him, he's 6'3", 210. I think he's a good versatile receiver. There's a lot to like about him, but I will say he's never going to be a big yards after the catch guy. I don't think he has that in his game. I think he's a very solid possession receiver that's benefited from the usage that he's seen at Purdue because they don't really have any other guys out there. When Rondale Moore was there, you did see them play off each other a little bit more. But then again, I don't know if he necessarily has that wide receiver 1 ability. If I'm ranking somebody in my top 5-ish, 6 in that range, I want wide receiver 1 ability. And I don't know if he is a wide receiver 1 ability.
I'm going to disagree. And let's just save my comments.
Yes.
We'll get to him. We'll show where he's on my list later.
That's fine. That's my argument. I don't think he's ever going to have the top-notch speed to do what we need to see from a wide receiver 1. I do think that he needs space to get off his routes off the line. Mm-hmm. So I don't like his release, and that's one of the big things I like about receivers is how well do they release. I don't think that he has a good release yet that can separate himself at the next level.
I can admit that he doesn't have elite speed.
Okay. That's fine.
No, I have elite speed.
He's still my wide receiver 6. All right, so
I get it. I'm just gonna say he hasn't come up on my list, Kevin. I got something to say later.
Everybody out there, my hot take is not that he's like my wide receiver 22. He's still my wide receiver 6.
I mean, 6 is respectable.
All right. Let's go to your wide receiver 5. Who do you got at wide receiver 5?
All right, wide receiver 5 for me is Johnny Michie. All right, from Alabama. Okay. Now, I loved what I saw out of him while trying to eat when Waddle was healthy with Devontae Smith. And he's a guy who can stretch that field. He's great after the catch. He's got it all to be an alpha. Now, what worries me about him, he has the most loaded group of freshmen ever coming in. Yeah. And that does bother me a little bit. But I do believe in experience winning out. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I like Michie, man. I think Michie's another guy who has that first-round potential. He's a second-round pick at the floor, man. I love Bama receivers, and Michie showed it while playing with elite talent around him, man. Like, it's his turn. It's his turn. And I actually think he's a buy in C2C because of all the hype with the freshmen right now.
Yeah, I will say that's true. I've seen Michie go in weird spots, and so I don't mind where he going in value wise if you can grab him. Don't hate it. I really don't hate it, and I don't mind where he's kind of going in those drafts. But I don't actually have him in my top 10. I think it's part of it, like we talked about with competition, right? So he's going to get this loaded class is coming, and he's going to have to compete. Now, if he can break out of this thing, great. That shows kind of what he is as a receiver. But again, for me, speed, he doesn't really necessarily have it, which doesn't really mean he doesn't have great speed. He doesn't have game-breaking speed, I don't feel like. Like Henry, again, this is not a Henry Ruggs show, so I'm not asking him to be like Henry Ruggs because obviously that did not work out for Henry Ruggs. But when I look at these things, I think that he struggled. He does make good catches. I think that. I get a little – I don't know. How worried are you at the wide receiver position for Alabama with some of these guys? Like Ruggs and these guys that coming out, they're so open. They have such a great kind of
that's such a good question,
scheme.
Man.
They have great scheme. And then Judy doesn't really – I mean, I love Judy, but Judy doesn't really profile as well now. Are we worried about that system a little bit more with Michie? Or
I actually think you're wrong about Judy. I think Judy profiles very well, and he's a guy who everybody should be buying in Dynasty because he's about to get expensive, and dude was getting fed at the end of the year. You also got to remember that Drew Lock sucks. So
why the Drew Lock slander on my show?
I like Judy, man. Drew Lock sucks. So anyways, no, man, but I get that. I mean, I also think that's part of the reason when you look at Mac Jones, like kind of being like a guy that's really that because of the scheme, but they're elite athletes. That's where they're at Alabama. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the scheme is great, but they're also good enough to be in the system. You know what I mean? And there's plenty of guys that they beat out to be dominant in that system. You know what I mean? It's not like they're beating me out to be the wide receiver at Alabama, which they wouldn't. Let me tell you, I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? Like they're the best of the best, man. You know. And with John Michie, what you said about the speed, like the first thing that popped out with me is like how he was burning one-on-one coverage when Waddle and Smith were playing with him, and he's putting up numbers. And I was like, who is this kid? I actually went in and I spent $100 on my Fab Bucks the first week I could. And then I found out we can't bid zero on anybody the rest of the year. And I was like, well, at least I got Michie. So, yeah, I'm a big Michie, man. And the thing, too, is that, like, if Michie, like, I kind of feel like if Michie doesn't hit that ceiling potential, Michie's a wide 3 in the NFL. Come on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's gonna be a decent, like, flex option. I also tend to play in leagues where you have 4 to 5 flexes, start over 3 wide receivers. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Michie's going to have that room. So he has a nice floor, but I love his ceiling.
Okay, so I mean that's fair. I think we're going to disagree a little bit on. I think he did fine when Waddle went out, but I also think when Waddle and him were playing together, he looked better because he had the off coverage. And then when he got kind of hit with, hey, now we're going to put your best corner. And the SEC's defense is overrated out there, everybody. Like, they don't have the best defensive backfields when you see, like, when you're looking at, like, Ole Miss and he's putting up 75 yards, yeah, Ole Miss was trash. Tennessee, where you had 151 yards, yeah, Tennessee is an SEC team, but are they? Like, are they really? Because they were out there giving bags at McDonald's, and they were not very good on defense. So I think we sometimes overrate that. And then he did have some games where, like, Kentucky, other place, he only had one catch. So I do worry about his consistency a little bit. And can he do it against next level talent, cornerbacks? Can we see that? Now, he might, and we'll see. But that is my only hesitation about John Mechie. That's it.
Got it.
So that's what we'll see. Now, we already kind of talked about this guy, so I'll briefly cover him. So my wide receiver 5 is Rakim Jarrett. So Todd had him at 7. I have him at 5 because I think he's the wide receiver 1 of that class right now. I think or wide receiver 1A, 1B, I should say. My wide receiver 1's next. But I think he's going to compete for that wide receiver 1. I love him. Physical. He needs to work on his catching like we talked about. But I think Rakim Jarrett's going to really break out this year. And he's someone that I'm looking to buy in a lot of my C2C leagues because he's actually kind of cheapish, to be honest. He's actually – you can get him for a little bit depending on where you have. Like, I would probably trade Treylon Burks for him and something. Like, I would be looking to try to add a piece. But that's just me. We'll get into Burks here in a little bit. Actually, right now. So, Todd, who's your wide receiver 4?
Treylon Burks, baby.
Treylon Burks.
And it was kind of tough to put him at 4 because I kind of want to put him higher.
Yeah.
But, I just couldn't. So, freak, man. 6'3", 232, speed, power, ball skills. Absolutely an NFL talent. Has to be a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Has to be. Visions of DK all day. Is he the same player? No. I did not see DK's ball skills on college film like I do with Burks.
Yeah.
And Burks is like his body control for a guy his size is nuts. If anybody put Burks as their number 1 in Devy, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
100% fine with that, dude. For me, just not, I just at 4, there's just 3 guys I happen to like, but I love him, man. I got him in a bunch of places. I always get hit up to trade him. I pretty much say no. I don't even care what the offer is. I'm like, if I trade him away and he's who I think he could be, I'm never going to forgive myself. But, yeah, man, no, it's just absolutely just destined to be an absolute stud. And I actually think if the QB play isn't trash this year, because they probably are going to get a better QB coming in, I think that you could see an improvement this year. You know what I mean? Felipe Franks isn't a thrower. He's a runner. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I love Treylon Burks.
Yeah, no, I love Treylon. He's my wide receiver 3, so we can just kind of mention it anyway because we're pretty close. For me, I know I went back and forth on Burks and Boutte, and I was kind of going back and forth. Okay, where do I put these guys? But Burks, when he had against Missouri, 10 catches, 206 yards, a touchdown. Against Ole Miss, 11 catches, 137 yards, a touchdown. Texas A&M, who actually had an underrated defense this year, 7 catches, 117 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Georgia, 7 catches, 102 yards, and touchdown. So when we're looking at what he did against pretty top-level talent and individual performances that we see, he balled out. I mean, and he did great. And like you said, this guy's a monster. 6'3", 232. I have him as my wide receiver 3. You have him as your wide receiver 4. I like Treylon Burks. I think that he's a good value. But if you're rebuilding or if you're looking at it from an NFL perspective and you're trying to draft and trade, if you're in a C2C league, I don't mind giving up Treylon for like Rakim plus something on the NFL side. Try to maybe go a little lower, get Rakim, get one of these guys that I really like, and then grab something. So in terms of trading, which it can always be difficult in C2C leagues, but
right.
I don't mind doing something like that. But no, I like Treylon. He's my wide receiver 3, so we can kind of skip over him when we get to it. But then I like that pick. My wide receiver 4 is our guy, Kayshon Boutte. We talked about him already. But I actually have him in my top 4. So that's kind of where I have him. I'm glad I got him in some leagues. And I think one value that you guys out there that are drafting right now is draft some of these young wide receivers. You can hit on some in the different rounds. Like I wish I went back and looked, and I believe I got him in the 9th round of a Devy league last year. So heading into the season, I got him in 9th round. Now he could be a wide receiver 1 of that class. Now you got to be very careful. Like you don't be drafting. Demond DeMoss is definitely the opposite of that. Like you're drafting him thinking he's going to be and he was going way early. He was going probably 3-4 rounds, probably 3rd, 4th round, somewhere in there, depending on where you were.
Easy. I mean, the backups were enticing. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful with that. So Kayshawn, to me, from LSU, I think him and Jarrett are going to be right there for me. Then we'll see how this year goes, but that's my wide receiver 4. So, all right, let's get to your wrong wide receiver 3. Let's get to the terrible wide receiver 3 pick. Go ahead. Who is your wide receiver 3?
My wide receiver 3 is the ever mature George Pickens.
Yes. The University of Georgia.
Yes. Rough sophomore year, had 2 great games to finish out the year. Granted, Stetson Bennett was not a good QB, and that he looks better with JT Daniels, but lots of maturity issues here, man. Lots of maturity issues between complaining, squirting water on his opponent from the sideline, just weird stuff, man. He's a guy that, if you watch him on film, he doesn't care about blocking. I'm not a huge guy to worry about attitude, but his just sticks out so badly, Do I think that he's the most talented receiver in this, college wide receiver? Probably. Mm-hmm. I won't 100% put him over my number 1 guy, but it's him or the other guy, So to me, it's I have him in a few places, and his stock just plummeted because of that start. And people are trying to trade him for me. I'm I'm not selling him low. You know what I mean? And it's do I really like what I've seen from him? No. Just because, I want to be able to see somebody who I think could be a professional, too. Does he have all the tools to be a dominant wide receiver in the NFL? Of course he does. But I'm worried about whether he has the mind to do it. That's my thing, man. So...
Okay, well, we'll get to him later when you hear his right ranking from me. I'm going to give him the reasons why I have him where I have him ranked. So I understand everything that Todd's saying, though. I understand the maturity thing. Damn it, there's an issue there. Would you stop spraying people with water bottles on the sideline, George Pickens? Would you not doing the things that are driving me crazy? But I'm going to go over the positives where I'm going to outweigh hopefully his negatives. We'll get there in a minute. But I understand the maturity thing is I really feel like the only thing that's wrong with George Pickens is the maturity.
Right. And that's what got him to 3 for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think he's a better player than my number 2.
Yeah. Me too, by a lot, but it's all right. We'll get there.
All right, go ahead. Who's your number 3, man?
My number 3 is Treylon Burks. We already talked about him. I think those guys are pretty interchangeable. These top 4 guys. Treylon is big guy. So, he's got that DK Metcalf mold, which he's probably a better receiver. We saw him actually do very good that last year. At Arkansas with a probably pretty bad quarterback play, and we're looking from there. Now, I think the quarterback play is going to be kind of an issue. Who's going to be there next year? I've seen a bunch of different reports. Maybe KJ Jefferson. So maybe if KJ Jefferson comes in and they have that. So it'll be interesting to see. I think one thing I will say about this is a little different than we talked about. I think Treylon's more of a Devy pick than a C2C pick. I don't know how his numbers are going to look. I don't mind drafting him in C2C if I'm expecting him to be he's got a top pick in the NFL draft. He's going to have first round capital. Maybe his numbers will be borderline, not first, a wide receiver 1 in terms of campus to can leagues. That would be the only thing I would say you got to be worried about. But I'm not drafting him for campus to can. I'm drafting him for Devy, and I'm going to do that. So
I think in campus can he's still going to be able to hold low wide 1. You know what I mean? For the college side, but high wide too. But I also think that I think he was holding that down last year, but I can't off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I feel like they had a really good QB transfer to Arkansas, and I'm drawing a blank. But we'll have to look that up later.
Yeah, no, I looked. It was KJ Jefferson, and I can look where you go to. I mean, or maybe Malik Hornsby is somebody I actually like.
Oh, I like Malik Hornsby too. So, actually,
Hornsby from Arkansas. If he gets that job, then I would like him even more because I think Malik Hornsby is actually an underrated C2C asset out there for you guys out there. All right, let's go to your wide receiver 2.
Without a doubt, the wide receiver 2 is David Bell. David Bell came in and just absolutely feasted when Rondale Moore went down.
Yeah.
And, that freshman year, you could say, okay, Rondale Moore went out, he just got the volume. He got better, and he makes catches all over the field. His body control is unbelievable. His catch radius on the adjustments that he makes on these less than perfect throws, and quite a few of them, might add, is impressive. Lines up anywhere in the formation, dominates in contested catch situations. 6'2", 205, big target. Kevin said he doesn't have that elite speed, which is true. He doesn't, but he's got good speed, and he's between the size, the ability, the ball skills, the versatility. And the thing is, too, is he's a great red zone target. So for me, I just think that David Bell is a guy that wherever he ends up in the NFL as a first-round pick, he's going to be somebody who could just line up in any scheme in any part of the field. He's not a landing spot dependent player, and I just love him, man. He's as safe can come with some great upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's a very solid prospect. I just don't want to put a solid prospect as my wide receiver 2. I would like to go a little bit more upside, and maybe I can get a wide receiver 1 category, like a superstar. Hey, that's what I'm looking for with these things. They're so fluid, though. David Bell could easily jump up higher on my list this season. And these things are fluid, but right now he's at my 6, and that's a little bit of a difference. I think there's a clear tier break after the top. I would say 3 for me. Not clear, but it's a little bit of a tier break. But I think David's in there. I just want to see him improve. He hasn't played the best defenses, but college, who cares? I think he needs to get out of his routes quicker, and I just worry about his get off speed. That's really the key thing that I keep getting hicked up on every time I watch him is how much space he needs to get off the line, and that's the one area. And I'm going to go back and look after we get done with this, and I would applaud everybody that's listening to this. Go look at his get off speed. What do you see from it? But that would be the only thing there. Now, this is my wide receiver 2 is Garrett Wilson. So this kid's a stud. I love Garrett Wilson. He is so close to my wide receiver 1. It's not even. It's close. Okay. Garrett Wilson was actually my wide receiver 6 coming into last year. So I actually had him on my rankings on my Devy preview for the website I had him, and I had some crap because he didn't necessarily have a huge year his freshman year. He was okay. But I just watched what he did to my Michigan Wolverines in that game, and he just crushed it. I mean, this season, he passes offensive production from last year in 5 games this year, and he just absolutely crushed it. He had 43 catches, 723 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's a big play threat. I love his 50-50 balls, his athleticism, everything he does. Releases off the line, one cut, comeback routes. I think he's actually a red zone threat. When you look at what he can able to do, he scores touchdowns, which is key. Not all these guys can score touchdowns. Garrett Wilson from Ohio State scores touchdowns. And another thing, I'm a big intangibles guy, except for with my wide receiver 1. He's a high IQ football player. Like, he finds the soft spots and defenses. He's getting to learn from Hartline, who's one of the best receivers coaches that we mentioned many times. He's been proved there. It's a skill he's going to do well. High IQ, red zone threat, acceleration, everything. There's really I don't know if I see too big of weaknesses for him. I think everything that he did last year kind of showed what he could do this year. I think he's clear wide receiver 1 in Ohio State's team, which is loaded.
Yeah, man. You might as well just throw the graphic up. He's my wide receiver 1. Like you were just saying, like I have in my notes, I don't see a lot of things in his game that I don't like. And when you were talking about his acceleration, like for me, that's also like that, like the burst, man. It's like he's got like a teleport burst, like he just gets it going. You're like, how did he get there so fast, man? And that's the separation that he gets. And he's got great footwork to set up DBs too. Unbelievable athlete, exceptional athlete, natural wide receiver, so fluid, gets up high with ease. It's like he floats. It's kind of like watching Jordan, man, when he jumps. Like, it's just like, I don't know why, but that's just something like just the fluidity of like a basketball player going for a dunk. That's what it reminds me of when he jumps. Acrobatic, And then the thing is, too, is that, like, huge numbers in 2021 compared to his freshman season playing 5 less games. So, like, clearly his arrow is pointing up, man. Like, and he's just such a burner, man. Like, absolutely, like you said, the high IQ player coming out of Heartland for another year. He's my 1. It's not even close for me.
No, I think he has exceptional eye discipline. He doesn't drop the ball. Like he doesn't drop it. His 50-50 skills is something I love. It's why I love Jamar Chase so much. It's like the 50-50 skills. How well did he get off in traffic? Because he catches traffic. He does that really great. And again, he watches hips. So everybody out there, when you watch a film, if you watch his hips, he stays low, and that's how he creates a separation. He has extraordinary hips and footwork, and he gets in and out of breaks, and I love watching him just run routes. He's my favorite route runner in college football, and I just love what he does in that offense. And then that offense excels because of him. They really complement each other well. But if you watch his hips, man, he's excellent. He could easily be my wide receiver 1, but I'm making a damn statement with my wide receiver 1, and my wide receiver 1 is George Pickens from Georgia. Okay, we heard Todd talk about his concerns, so I won't talk about my concerns. I already kind of really did. I think one of the things is I'm not worried about his production from last year because, damn it, he had Stinson Bennett and DeJuan Mathis throwing him the ball. The previous year was not any better. Did you watch Jake Fromm throw the ball? Because he had terrible accuracy. I can't tell you how many times George Pickens was open as a freshman, riding down the sidelines, and he has his hand up, and Fromm throws it 20 yards out of bounds, and then Fromm yells at him. And I'm like, no wonder why that dude gets mad, because Fromm's trash. Like, what is going on right now? So I think that he really suffered from poor quarterback play. And as much as JT Daniels is not as heralded as like most people think, I think that it's we're going to see him for a full year. And so that really does help me. I think that Daniels being there it makes me a little bit optimistic. You know, he's 6'3", 194, 6'4", 194, depending on what you look at. His ability to get in and out of hips, he explodes. Everything about him as a true freshman, he has elite skills at every level. Yeah. And he gains extra yards. He plays with a chip. Now that chip can be borderline, discipline problem-ish. But I like that in my receivers. And guys like T.O. and Ocho Cinco and these guys that we always think of, every receiver has that kind of – they got to learn how to channel it. And I think Pickens is trying to learn how to channel it. I think that he's made efforts that you will see. But he has a high-level effort. Like, no one's going to ever question George Pickens' effort. Like, that is not anything that's going to happen.
I will on run blocking.
Well,
he doesn't do it.
Man, listen, you're in the game to catch the ball. Okay, so George Pickens is here to catch the ball. I will say that I think it's improving. I'm going to say this with Pickens. I think he's got to take a big step mentally. He's definitely does. I'm not making excuses for him. He needs to take that step. And so Pickens, as an athlete, he dominates every part of the game. You'll see him have the big catches, and he's averaged about 14, 15 yards a catch. He's been consistent there. He's going to score touchdowns. And he has those amazing catches. And I think one other part of his game that I mentioned is that he's a big-time player in big games. Each bowl game that he's had each year. So in 2020 against Cincinnati, 7 catches, 135 yards, and a touchdown. And that was the bowl game. Against Baylor, that was kind of his coming out game at the end of the year. 2 years ago, he had 12 catches, 175 yards, and a touchdown. When he is in a huge game, a big game.
He had that game too.
Yeah. Big game guy. So when I'm looking at my wide receiver 1, I want a guy that's in a big game, has that athletic ability, does have that chip. Yes, he needs to mature, but you know what? I don't want him to mature too much. He's still got that edge, and I like that edge. I don't know if he's ever going to lose that edge because I coach guys like that. They have that edge because of where they were, where they played. You got to stop spraying water bottles on people, George Pickens. That's the number one thing. If he can do that, I mean, he's my clear-cut wide receiver 1 in this class.
So I couldn't say clear-cut. For me, like, I think Garrett Wilson and him would be like neck and neck. You know what I mean? That's fair. I feel like Wilson's more of a fluid player for me. You know what I mean? Where I would say like Pickens has got that physical gift. Like, when I look at Garrett Wilson, all I see is Stephon Diggs, dude, all day. You know what I mean? And like Pickens could be like better than that, but I'm going to go with the better, like more fluid athlete. And with Pickens, I saw that was my 3. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not completely crapping on the guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? It sounds like I am, but that's the reason why he's not my 2 necessarily or my 1, because he could definitely contend for that. But yeah, I get that. And we had a comment from FF Reality Check about Jermaine Burton, dude. I have him as my wide receiver 21. I think that he's a good route runner, good all-around player. I worry about his ceiling athletically and for his profile, but I definitely think he has NFL potential. I'm just not I think if you believe in him, I think you could go out and get him because in the realm of possibilities, him being like, second round, third round draft pick is definitely there. And he's not going to cost a lot to do that,
Yeah. Burton and me have had a weird relationship. I watched a lot of film on him. I think he could be. He's in that top 24 category for me. He's going to get the volume, right? Like that receiving core is not. He's going to get volume at some point. So I don't mind getting him. I think he's going to take that big step. I think with Daniels, I think a lot of the problems came from the quarterback position. Yep. So with Daniels being there, I could see Burton jumping up there. But I think he's going to be day 2 at best. Day 2.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see the ceiling there. I think he could. I also don't really know what his floor is per se. You know what I mean? Yeah. He looks like he has a pretty good floor. He did pop for me a little bit of times. He's a tough player. Yeah. Tough player, but he's physical, and I like that. Yeah. So, I think he's definitely, like I said, wide receiver 21 on my board right now.
Okay. No, that's fair. All right. Now, hey, that's our top 10. So, and a lot of those guys, as I was going through them, I'm trying to, go through basically where we got them. Pickens and those guys basically going into the first. So, Pickens, Garrett, Wilson, and Burks and Kayshon Boutte are going into first, early second. That's where I've generally kind of seen them. Rakim is kind of middle, second, third-ish, depending on the draft that you're in. Bell in going first, second turn in there. And then those other guys that we kind of talked about, that's all based on go get your guys. So that they're going from 4 to 10, depending on where you can draft them.
I would say Jordan Addison's by far the best value out of the list.
Yeah, I would say Addison's probably the best value. Yeah. And even JSM in for me, Jackson.
That's actually a good call, too. Him, too. Yeah.
I think both those guys, even Quentin Johnston right now I think people like us know about Quentin Johnston, but I don't know necessarily how your league mates might not know about Quentin Johnston. So that's a good kind of way to go look at him. I'm glad you brought him up. Now, what we want to do really quick, the last 5 minutes here is just, and we're not going to go super, super detailed here, but some guys coming up, some wide receivers that we like. We're going to give a few. I'll have Todd go first, give a few that he likes from the freshman class. So if you're thinking about maybe these guys being the next Boutte or the next Rakim Jarrett, who do we like being in that top 10 maybe next year or even maybe a little deeper? Who are some guys that you kind of have an eye
on? Brooks and Early are my two guys out of the Bama group that I like. I think Brooks has the best upside with his athleticism and his size. I think Early is the most gifted athlete out of the group. Mm-hmm. So that's there. Some other guys, I'll save one of my guys because I know you're going to talk about him. One guy that jumped off on Phil for me was Xavier Worthy. He's got like Olympic speed, dude. His downfall is he plays in Michigan. Sorry, dude. It's been rough.
I know.
So for some guys that are a little bit more like, I'm not looking for the studs. These are the guys I think are a little bit more value plays. I think Brooks Collins, who came out of St. John's Bosco, he's going back to play with his high school quarterback. And he's a 4-star, big kid, can stretch the field, got good body control. I'm not going to hate the idea of him playing with a kid he's already played with, throwing the ball, But my two favorite wide receivers in terms of what I feel like their potential is versus where they're going in drafts is Brian Thomas Jr. This kid just looks like just a dominant wide receiver, just super skilled, good athlete. But my favorite wide receiver in startups is Lonnie White Jr.
Okay.
Lonnie White Jr. going to Penn State. Penn State's got a great track record with wide receivers, a great track record with underrated wide receivers. Big fan of Dotson too. Just saying that. Yeah. But the thing about Lonnie White is, man, you have to go to his junior highlight film to watch him as a wide receiver, and it's impressive, man. After the catch, freak athlete, had D1 offers for basketball and baseball too. And now the reason you don't watch his senior film as much is he was their quarterback.
Yeah.
At the highest level of Georgia high school football and looking like he could have been a D1 pro football, D1 quarterback too. So Lonnie White Jr., I like the landing spot. I like the athletic profile. I like the versatility. And he's going later than he should.
Yeah, no, I like those guys. Ja'Cory Brooks is one of my favorite from Alabama. Some people are storing him a little bit. And I'm like, I don't know. He's a stud. If you're going to say anybody's next Julio, it's Ja'Cory Brooks. If you're going to do those things, that's Ja'Cory. I don't know. Stop giving me other guys. I like Ajayi Hall too, but he's more of a project. So I think Hall's going to be more of a project. Two guys, I'll just do two. I know that Todd was going to mention him, so I want to give him credit too. That's Troy Franklin going to Oregon.
Love him.
Kid's a stud. You need to draft him. I'm currently getting him every 9th round in my C2C leagues and Devy drafts. And I think that's a good value for a guy that maybe could be a top 5 wide receiver guy that we're thinking about, like, hey, what tier can they get into? He's going into a great offense, new quarterback, Ty Thompson, who I absolutely love. Oregon is building something in Oregon. And Eugene, they have one of the best draft classes I've seen in a while there. And I love what they have there. So Troy, for me, he's explosive. I think that he's easily a tier 1 wide receiver right now that's kind of getting overlooked. But go get Troy Franklin. And then the other guy is Destin Hill from Florida State. I like that. You know, Destin, 6'1", 180. I think Florida State, they have no one really that great at the receiver position. They're rebuilding. They just got the transfer from UCF, who I cannot think off the top of my head his name, Dylan Gabriel, right? They just got Gabriel, I believe it's Gabriel. They just got Gabriel there. So we're gonna see these guys there. So Destin Hill is basically my guy. I like him, especially where he's going in startups. So get Destin Hill, because I think he could be the next great Florida State quarterback there, or excuse me, wide receiver.
I love that pick, man. I love that pick. That was a great pick.
Yeah, no, I think it could be good. Mackenzie Milton. He's the one that transferred to Florida State. So, we'll see there. And then they have Chuba Purdy there. So you get Destin Hill with those two guys. Who knows what they're going to be? So those are my two guys underrated. I really like those guys. The other guys, Emeka, those other guys are there. But those are two guys that I really like. So
one other guy for Florida State is Malik McClinnon. He's like a 4-star kid. Late sleeper. Like, and you're like, scraping the barrel at the end of the draft. The kid's a big target, but also went to IMG, dude, and did well.
Yeah. Just look for IMG. That's what I'm doing. That's why JJ McCarthy is going to bring me back to the promised land, Michigan. But no, I agree, and I think, and that's another thing with these wide receivers. I always try to look at, like a guy like Addison and these other guys that go to these programs. Look for who's going to get the volume in the freshman level, because that'll help them with their production. It's going to help them with learning the position. Florida State's a perfect example of that. Running backs and wide receivers. Go grab some of those guys, because someone's going to emerge from that class and someone's going to emerge from that area. So go grab those guys, because they're going to get the volume that is needed. So I would say that. And hey, I appreciate you coming on. Why don't you tell everybody again, so those listening at the end, where they can find you, Twitter, where they can find your work, and maybe something you're coming down. What are you working on right now that we can get a look forward to?
All right. So I am on Twitter at FF_Banterman. I am a co-host on A Tale of Two Rivals with at FF_Spaceman David Wright, the spreadsheet Ned. We also have our host, Sean Kennedy. You can find him on Twitter. He'll never answer. But yeah, no, that's my main thing. I'm also a writer over at the IDP guys. I'm mainly doing Devy. Like I said, I just put out something about, the running back transfers. I'm looking at running backs from the 2024 class, and I'm doing it by tier. I'm doing like a tier article. So when you start looking at it, like, that's tier drafting is a great. I don't care what league you're in. Tier drafting is the way to go to find value. So I'm doing that, and look out for the IDP rookie mag coming out after the draft. I've already knocked out 9 profiles, trying to get my 10th one done this weekend, man.
Hey, look at you working hard there. Yeah. No, I can't say enough about Todd. He's a great mind. He does great rankings. Tiers is the way to go, not ADP. Get your tiers out there. If you're looking for any content, Devy related, IDP related, anything at all, follow him. I think he's underrated. And I hate to, talk about this much, but he is underrated. He's an underrated person in the community, but he's also underrated in fantasy, and definitely follow him. If everybody out there is listening, if you're listening to the podcast, we appreciate you. If you're on YouTube, which has been growing really well, we appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. What do you think about these wide receivers, and why is Todd wrong about George Pickens? Make sure you put that in the comments.
I was just about to say thank you for all the positivity you're putting out in the community, man. And then the first thing you do is the last thing you take me. No, man, you're a phenomenal influence, man. Thanks for putting me out, dude. Yeah. This is fun.
No problem. All right, guys. Well, hey, we'll see you next time. And
did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to Hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.